I made it 6 steps from the archive room before my hands started shaking. The letter was in my pocket, folded twice. Elder Wu's symbol at the bottom. And my name, not Yan Bei's name, the name this body carried for 20 years. My name, the one nobody in this world should know. I pressed my back against the corridor wall, breathed. Okay, I said, to nobody. So the man who poisoned Elderfang knows I'm not the original owner of this face. That's fine. It wasn't fine. The letter said, tomorrow. The archive room. A name. Someone inside Qingshan who would carry out the instructions. Kill the girl who asks too many questions. I'm not her. But I was standing in the same corridor, holding the same kind of evidence, with the same number of people who wanted me dead. I needed to tell someone. Shen Yao's quarters were at the end of the eastern corridor. I'd never been there. In the novel, Yan Bei never went to Shen Yao's door. She went to his throat. He looked at me the way people look at you when they're trying to figure out if you're about to do something dangerous. I need to show you something, I said. I held out the letter. Elder Wu's symbol visible at the fold. Shen Yao looked at it. Then he reached into his own robe and pulled out a letter. Same paper, same fold, same symbol. I got mine 3 days ago, he said. I stared. You've had this for 3 days and you didn't come inside. His quarters were spare. A bed, a desk, a sword rack. He laid both letters on the desk side by side. Mine said, the girl knows too much. Handle her before the next moon, his said. The night is protecting the wrong person. Remove his evidence. Silence him if necessary. Same cipher. Same symbol. Different handwriting. 2 writers, I said. 2 networks, he said. I sat on the edge of his bed because there was no chair. Elder Wu has people inside Qingshan, I said. At least 2. 1 writing to you, 1 writing to me. Different hands. And a supply chain outside the sect, Shen Yao said. The compound we found in the tunnel stores. Hundreds of doses. This isn't a man acting alone. I rubbed my temples. What I read had him down for 3 lines. 3 lines and a background appearance at the tribunal. The novel didn't mention a network. It didn't mention accomplices. It didn't mention that the poison was supposed to, I caught myself, activate something. Elder Wu's words from the archive room. Something sleeping in Elder Feng's meridians. I hadn't told anyone yet. Nothing, I said. Forget I said that. He looked at me the way he always does when I slip, filing the inconsistency away for later. Shen Yao doesn't forget things. You've had a letter saying someone wants you dead, and you've been sitting on it for 3 days? I was investigating, by yourself. The sect doesn't trust you. If I bring this to the tribunal, they'll say you wrote it to create sympathy. He wasn't wrong. The tribunal had already tried to convict me once. Truth was irrelevant. So what do we do? I asked. We find the carriers before the deadline, which is... He pointed at the date on my letter. Tomorrow night. Then we don't sleep, I said. I left his quarters at the 7th bell. Made it 4 steps before I heard footsteps behind me. MC. Jiang Shu emerged from the shadow of the corridor like he'd been waiting there, which he probably had. You were in Shen Yao's quarters, he said. Walking past, at the 7th bell, I walk at odd hours. He fell into step beside me. Close, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of him through fabric. I need to show you something. He produced a letter. 3rd one tonight. Same paper. Same fold. Same symbol. Tianlan Pavilion received this 2 weeks ago, he said. Same cipher. Same instructions. Different target. 3 letters, I said. 3 sects. 1 system. Not 1 person. 1 infrastructure. He held it to the lantern light. This is a man with supply chains, accomplices across mountain ranges, and a cipher that 3 sects can't crack. I thought about the tunnel, the hundreds of doses, the network stretching beyond Qingshan. The pages I read never mentioned any of this, I said. Then caught myself. Sorry. I keep saying that. No, Jiang Shu said. It's useful. It tells me the novel is incomplete. And it tells me you've been reading a very short version of a very long story. We stood outside the archive room. Jiang Shu produced a small vial, clear, faintly luminous. Detection compound. Tianlan Pavilion developed it. Reacts to the signature of the poison network supplies. Apply it to door handles. Trace which hands have touched Elder Wu's materials. That's brilliant. It's also dangerous. You need steady hands. He took my wrist. Gently. His fingers warm against my skin, not clinical, but deliberate. Stay still. His thumb pressed against the inside of my wrist. Not the pulse point, just below it, where the meridian ran shallow. I felt the compound transfer, cool and tingling. 1 second, I said. 2, he said. He didn't let go. I told myself it was the technique. The compound needed contact to bond. Practical. Clinical. His fingers were still on my wrist. Jiang Shu, you can let go now. He did. Slowly, like releasing something was harder than holding it. The compound needs a minute to settle. After that, press your hand to any surface the carriers have touched. It'll glow if the compound is present. Great. Utility technique. Very useful. Is that all you thought it was? He was smiling. Not the charming smile he showed the sect, the real one, smaller, less certain. The letter said, tomorrow night, I said, deflecting. Less than a day. Then we should start now. He turned toward the eastern corridor. I followed. And somewhere behind us, somewhere in the sect, somewhere in the corridors, somewhere in the ordinary motion of a place that didn't know it was poisoning itself, a letter was moving toward me. I didn't know it yet, but I would. The eastern corridor had 17 doors, 17 rooms, 17 disciples who slept, practiced, meditated, and, apparently, carried letters for a man who poisoned elders and framed teenagers. Jiang Shu and I moved door to door. I pressed my palm against each handle, waited, watched for the faint blue glow the compound promised. Nothing, nothing, nothing. On the 9th door, a flicker. Got one, I whispered. Jiang Shu marked the room with a small chalk line, barely visible, low on the frame. 2 more to find. We kept moving. The corridor was silent. 3rd bell had passed. Most disciples were asleep. The ones who weren't would have questions if they saw the villain's body creeping through the halls at midnight, pressing her hands to door handles. Nothing. 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 14th door. Another flicker. Brighter this time. And the 3rd? I asked. 16th door. The glow was steady. Strong. Whoever used this handle touched it often. 3 carriers. Inside Qingshan. One of them slept 4 doors from Shen Yao's quarters. I was crouched at the 16th door, chalk marking the frame, when I heard footsteps behind me. Not Jiang Shu's. His were quiet, deliberate. These were fast, military. Shen Yao. He came around the corner and stopped. Looked at me. Looked at the chalk mark. Looked at Jiang Shu, who was leaning against the opposite wall like he had all the time in the world. What are you doing? Shen Yao asked. Marking carrier rooms, I said. Detection compound. 3 handles glowed. His eyes moved to Jiang Shu. Who gave you the compound? Tianlan Pavilion, Jiang Shu said. Developed it for exactly this kind of network. You trust him? Shen Yao asked me. I trust that the compound works, I said, and that 3 people in this corridor are carrying letters for the man who poisoned Elder Feng. Shen Yao was quiet for a moment. Then, I want to see the compound work. Tomorrow, Jiang Su said. I'll demonstrate on a known surface. You can verify the reaction yourself. Tomorrow, Shen Yao repeated. Not tonight. Tonight we rest, Jiang Shu said. Tomorrow we trace the carriers to their sources. Find out who recruited them. Build a map. Shen Yao looked at him the way he looks at evidence, methodically, searching for gaps. You've done this before. I've been doing this for 2 years, Jiang Shu said. Since my disciple died. We walked back toward the main corridor. Jiang Shu peeled off toward the guest quarters. Shen Yao stayed beside me. At my door, I turned to say good night. Jiang Shu was there. He'd circled back. Or he'd been walking the same direction. Or he'd been waiting. You should sleep, he said. You look terrible. I look like a villain. You look like someone who hasn't slept in 3 days. There's a difference. Behind me, Shen Yao hadn't moved. I could feel him there, the silence of someone choosing not to speak. 4 days, I said. The deadline says tomorrow night. But the letter was written 3 days ago. If the network moves on a cycle, the next instruction goes out in 4 days. We have until then, 4 days to find 3 carriers, trace their recruiter, and map the network inside Qingshan, Jiang Shu said. Optimistic timeline, pessimistic is 5. He smiled. The real smile. The one that didn't perform for an audience. Sleep, he said. I'll be in the archive room, at first bell, if you need me. He turned to leave. Past Shen Yao in the corridor. Neither acknowledged the other. But Jiang Shu's shoulder was close to mine as he passed, close enough that I caught the scent of him, something clean and sharp, like mountain air after rain. Then he was gone. Shen Yao stood in the corridor, looking at the space where Jiang Shu had been. He's useful, I said. I didn't say he wasn't. The compound works. He has 2 years of intelligence on the network. He's an ally. I didn't say he wasn't, Shen Yao repeated. Silence. In the book, I caught myself. Change track. When I read about you, you were supposed to fall for Su Mei at chapter 15. You were supposed to be the righteous hero who loved the pure girl and destroyed the villain. He looked at me. And you're standing in my corridor at midnight, looking jealous of a man who taught me a detection technique. His jaw tightened. I'm not jealous. Your hand is on your sword hilt. He looked down. His hand was, in fact, on his sword hilt. He let go. I don't trust him, he said. You don't trust anyone. That's not the same thing. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, get some sleep. We have 4 days. He turned and walked away. His footsteps were measured, controlled, the footsteps of someone who was very carefully not running. I watched him round the corner. Then I went inside and closed the door and pressed my back against it and thought, this is not the novel. None of this is the novel. The hero was supposed to love someone else. The villain was supposed to be dead. And I was supposed to be nobody. I sat on my bed, pulled out the letter, read it again by candlelight. The date was clear, tomorrow night. But Jiang Shu was right. The letter was written 3 days ago. If the network operated on a cycle, the instructions were already 3 days old. The carrier had been delayed. Or the timeline was flexible. 4 days. In the novel, I was supposed to be exiled by now. Meridians sealed. Stumbling through mountain wilderness, with nothing but resentment and a body that couldn't cultivate. Instead, I was sitting in a room that wasn't mine, in a body that wasn't mine, holding a letter written by a man who knew what I was. And I had 4 days to find 3 carriers, trace a network, and stay alive. The novel's pages were blank from here. But the blank pages had a deadline. and somewhere in the eastern corridor, 3 door handles glowed faintly in the dark, marking the rooms of people who were carrying letters for a man who had been poisoning sects for years. 4 days. I blew out the candle. Then I lay in the dark and listened to the sect settle into its nightly routine. Footsteps fading, doors closing, silence spreading through the corridors like water filling cracks. 3 doors in the eastern corridor glowed faintly in the dark. 3 people who didn't know they were marked. 4 days to find them before the network closed its fist. And somewhere in the walls, the 4th letter, the one addressed to me, was already moving. I lay in the dark and listened to the sect breathe. 3 door handles glowed in the eastern corridor. 3 carriers. 4 days. And somewhere in the walls, a letter was still moving, addressed to someone who wore my face and didn't earn it. I hadn't slept. The candle had burned down to a nub, wax pooling on the nightstand, like a small, patient wound. I stared at the ceiling and thought about what I'd never read, that the poison network had branches, that the man who poisoned Elder Feng had infrastructure, that somewhere, right now, someone was folding a piece of paper with my name on it. According to every page I memorized, Sume was supposed to be harmless. Elder Wu was supposed to be furniture. The poison was supposed to be one compound. Every page was wrong. I found her at the medicine hall. Not by accident. I'd been watching her for 2 days, tracking her patterns the way my memory of the plot taught me to track characters. Sume at morning practice. Sume at evening meal. Sume in the archive room, reading text she shouldn't need. Today she was grinding herbs. Alone. The mortar rhythmic against the stone, a sound like a patient heartbeat. I stood in the doorway. She didn't look up. "You've been following me," she said. "Observing. There's a difference. When I read about you, you were supposed to be in the eastern courtyard at this hour. Practicing forms." She looked up. Her eyes were calm. Calculating. The eyes of someone who had been running numbers long before I arrived. "The eastern courtyard is where disciples go when they want to be seen," she said. "I prefer to work where no one looks." She set down the mortar, wiped her hands on a cloth, stood. "I heard about the letters," she said. My stomach dropped. "What letters?" "The ones Elder Wu sent. The ones that are moving through the sect right now." She crossed her arms. "I know who carries them." I stared at her. She stared back. Neither of us blinked. "How?" I asked. "Because I've been watching them longer than you have." She picked up a jar of ground powder, something yellow, something that smelled like crushed bone. She held it to the light. 3 carriers. 2 in the eastern corridor, 1 in the western. They rotate every 4 days. The cycle started 6 months ago. 6 months. She'd been tracking this for 6 months. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" I asked. She set the jar down, looked at me with those calm, calculating eyes. "Who would believe a junior inner disciple over a core elder?" she said. "I brought evidence to the tribunal once. They told me I was confused. That Elder Wu was a pillar of the sect. That I should focus on my cultivation." She smiled. It wasn't warm. So I focused on something else. She moved to the back of the medicine hall, pushed aside a shelf of dried roots. Behind it, stone. But not wall stone. Door stone. A seam. "Come with me," she said. "I want to show you something." The door opened onto darkness. Su Mei produced a lantern from somewhere. She'd planned this, I realized. She'd been waiting for me to come looking. We descended. The passage was narrow, carved from living rock. The walls were old, older than the medicine hall, older than the current sect layout. Someone had built this decades ago. "Found it when I was 12, Su Mei said, her voice steady in the close dark. I was hiding from a senior disciple who didn't like my face. Crawled behind the shelf. The stone moved. You were 12, I said, and you never told anyone. I told you. Who would believe me? She glanced back. Her lantern light caught the edge of her smile. Besides, I needed it. We walked. The passage curved. I could feel the sect above us, the weight of stone, the muffled sounds of footsteps, of doors opening and closing. Down here, it was silent. The kind of silence that comes from being underground for a very long time. Where does this lead? I asked. To the man who built the network, Sume said. To his private study. To everything he doesn't want anyone to see. She stopped. Turned. Lantern light caught her face full on, the calm expression, the steady eyes, the mouth that never quite smiled when it should. I've been building a case for months, she said. Evidence. Dates. Names. The tunnel is how I move without being seen. She paused. You're the first person I've shown this to. I stood in the passage. Su Mei's lantern cast long shadows against the stone. Somewhere above us, the sect carried on, disciples practicing, elders meditating, letters moving through corridors like blood through veins. She'd known for 6 months. She'd been tracking carriers, mapping routes, building evidence. And she'd done it alone, because the version of Su Mei I'd read, the pure saint, the innocent victim, was a mask she'd been wearing since she was 12. According to the pages I'd memorized, she was good. According to the pages I'd memorized, she was kind. According to the pages I'd memorized, she never did anything wrong, but standing in that tunnel, watching her hold the lantern with the steady hands of someone who had been preparing for this moment for half a year, I realized something my memory never covered. Su Mei wasn't good. She wasn't evil. She was competent. And competence doesn't care about labels. She turned back to the passage. Kept walking. I followed. Somewhere ahead, the tunnel curved toward Elder Wu's private study. Toward evidence. Toward the man who had been poisoning sects for years, while the novel's pages described a different villain entirely. 4 days. 3 carriers. 1 tunnel. And Su Mei, the girl the novel called Pure, was leading me into the dark. The tunnel went deeper than I expected. Su Mei's lantern threw our shadows against carved stone, hers steady, mine stumbling. The passage sloped downward at an angle that felt deliberate, engineered. Not a natural cave. Not a quick dig. Someone had planned this route decades ago, when the medicine hall was new and the sect's corridors ran different. I counted my steps. 72 before the passage leveled. Almost there, Su Mei said. Her voice didn't echo. The stone swallowed sound. We'd been walking for 4 minutes. In the novel, I'd never gone underground. The pages stayed in courtyards, in corridors, in the bright spaces where witnesses could see. The novel didn't have tunnels. The novel didn't have Su Mei leading me through dark passages at midnight with a lantern and a case file. The novel didn't have much of anything, it turned out. The tunnel ended at a wall. But not a dead end, a door. Wood, reinforced with iron bands, set into the stone like it had always been there. No lock, just a handle. Su Mei didn't touch it. This opens into his private study, she said. Behind the tapestry wall. The same passage he used the night Elder Feng collapsed. I stared at the door. You know which night. I know every night. She held the lantern higher. I've mapped his movements for 6 months. Which nights he leaves. Which doors he uses. Which corridors are empty when he passes through them. She paused. The night of the poisoning, he left his study at the 4th bell. Returned at the 6th. No one saw him. The tunnel connects to the medicine hall's storage room. He could have administered the compound and been back before the servants woke. 6 months of surveillance. From a junior inner disciple who the sect dismissed as irrelevant. How? I asked. How did you even start? Because the novel, she stopped. Looked at me. Because I read something once. A text. about succession patterns in the outer sects. It mentioned Elder Wu's nephew, a name that shouldn't have been there. She pushed the door open. The study was small. A desk, a chest, shelves lined with texts I didn't recognize. The air smelled like old paper and something else, something chemical, faintly sweet. Su Mei set the lantern on the desk. The light caught everything, the neat stack of correspondence, the inkstone still wet, the small wooden box tucked beneath the desk chair. He comes here to write, Su Mei said. Not official correspondence. Personal. The network's instructions. The carrier rotations. The cipher keys. She opened the chest. Inside, rows of folded letters. Identical to the ones in my pocket. Same paper. Same fold. Same symbol. He writes them here, she said. Then returns through the tunnel. The carriers collect from a dead drop behind the medicine hall. He never touches the corridor handles himself. No evidence. The room was a command center. Quiet. Hidden. Connected to the medicine hall by a passage that bypassed every corridor camera, every watchful disciple, every possible witness. He built this when? I asked. The tunnel is older. The study modifications. 10 years, maybe more. The correspondence dates back 6 months. She pulled a letter from the chest. Unfolded it. The cipher was dense, but the instructions were clear. Carrier assignments, delivery windows, targets. This one names you, she said. Received it 3 days before you did. Made a copy. She held it out. I took it. Same words. Same threat. But this copy had margins. Su Mei's handwriting, small and precise, annotating every name, every date, every reference. She'd been decoding this for months. I sat on the floor of Elder Wu's hidden study, reading Su Mei's annotations. 6 months of surveillance condensed into margins. Carrier names, rotation schedules, dead drop locations, the network's hierarchy, Elder Wu at the top, 3 intermediaries, 12 carriers across 3 sects. You mapped all of this alone? I asked. Who would help me? She sat across from me, lantern between us. The sect thinks I'm a charity case. A junior disciple who got lucky. Elder Feng's pity project. She smiled. It wasn't warm. They don't watch me. They don't listen to me. They don't think I'm capable of understanding what I'm looking at. She was wrong about that. She was wrong about everything except this. They underestimated her. And she'd used it. When I brought evidence to the tribunal, she said, they told me I was confused. That Elder Wu was a pillar. That I should focus on cultivation. She paused. So I focused on something else. The same line from the medicine hall. But here, in the tunnel, in the hidden study, surrounded by 6 months of her work, it landed differently. She wasn't making an excuse. She was explaining a strategy. Why show me? I asked. Why now? Because the letters are moving faster. The cycle used to be monthly. Now it's every 4 days. He's accelerating. She looked at the chest of correspondence. I can't stop him alone. I couldn't stop him alone 6 months ago, but I can't wait another 6 months for the right moment. She stood, moved to the far wall, pushed aside a shelf, another hidden door, this one smaller, lower. Behind here, she said, his private stores. The door opened onto a chamber. Stone walls, stone floor, and shelves, row after row of identical glass vials, each sealed with wax, each containing the same faintly luminous compound. I counted. 50 on the first shelf, 50 on the second, 50 on the third. 150 doses. Minimum. He's been doing this for years, I said. Longer than 6 months, Su Mei said. The compound takes time to synthesize. This quantity, she gestured at the shelves, this is 2 years of production. Maybe 2 years. Not a sudden plan. Not a reaction to the succession. A long game. A man who had been poisoning sects for years, building a network recruiting carriers, while the novel described a background character with 3 lines. I picked up a vial, held it to the lantern light. The compound swirled, faintly blue, faintly alive. The same stuff that's in Elder Feng, I said. The same stuff that's in Elder Feng, she confirmed. And in the outer sects. And in the mountain compounds. This isn't one poisoning. It's a system. She stood in the doorway of the hidden chamber, lantern light catching the edge of her face. The calm expression, the steady eyes, the mouth that never quite smiled when it should. 6 months, she said. I've been building a case for 6 months. And you're the first person who can actually help me use it. I looked at the vials. 150 doses. Enough to poison every elder in the sect. Enough to collapse the entire power structure. The pages never mentioned this room. They never described a network this large. They never showed Su Mei standing in a hidden chamber with 6 months of evidence and a plan. 4 days. 3 carriers. 150 doses. And Su Mei, the girl the novel called pure, was done waiting. 3 days left. I counted them the way Su Mei counted carriers, methodically, with evidence. I stood in the training courtyard at first bell, watching the outer disciples line up for morning practice. 30 bodies. 30 faces. 3 of them were carrying letters for a man who'd been poisoning sects for years. Jiang Shu was already there, leaning against the courtyard wall, arms folded, watching the disciples with the patient focus of someone who'd been doing this for 2 years. You look rested, he said. I look like I crawled through a tunnel and found 150 reasons to not sleep. That's not the same as tired. Shen Yao arrived at second bell. He didn't look at Jiang Shu. He looked at me. Su Mei showed you the study, he said. Not a question. How did you? I saw the tunnel entrance yesterday, behind the medicine hall shelf. Open. I'd forgotten about the shelf, about the seam in the stone, about the fact that anyone could have followed us. We need to map the carriers, I said. All 3. Their recruitment, their handlers, the full network inside Qingshan. Jiang Shu knows the outer sects, Shen Yao said. It wasn't a compliment. It was a fact he'd clearly spent the morning resenting. I know the debts, Jiang Shu said. The blackmail vectors. The patterns. He pushed off the wall. Let me show you. Jiang Shu led us to the archive room. Not the main archive, a smaller one, used for financial records. He pulled 3 scrolls from a shelf and spread them across the table. Outer disciple finances, he said. Every debt, every loan, every payment to the sect treasury. I've been tracking them for 2 years. The scrolls were dense. Names, amounts, dates. But Jiang Shu had marked certain entries, red ink, small annotations. Here, he said, pointing to a name. Zhou Wei owes the sect 40 silver. Father sick. Mother dead. No family support. He pointed to another. Liang Feng, gambling debts. Lost his inheritance. Owes money to 3 different inner disciples, and a third. Chen Bao, orphaned at 12. Raised by the sect. No patron, no backing, no future without a sponsor. 3 names. 3 vulnerabilities. 3 people Elder Wu could recruit with a simple offer: carry this letter and your debts disappear. This is how he builds the network, Jiang Shu said. Not through loyalty. Through need. Shen Yao studied the scrolls. You've had these for 2 years and never had proof they were connected to Elder Wu. Until now. Jiang Shu looked at me. Until you found the tunnel. We moved to the courtyard. Morning practice was over. The outer disciples had dispersed. Empty stone, scattered training equipment, the faint smell of sweat and dust. "I need to teach you something," Jiang Shu said. "A technique that goes beyond the compound. Something that reads qi residue." Qi residue? When someone handles the compound regularly, it leaves traces in their qi pathways. Not visible, not detectable by normal means. But there's a technique, he paused. It requires contact, physical contact. Hand on wrist. I need to guide your perception through my own qi channel so you can feel what the residue looks like. And Shen Yao hadn't moved. He stood 3 paces away, watching. "Is this necessary?" he asked. "It's the fastest way to identify carriers without confronting them," Jiang Shu said. "The compound shows door handles. This shows hands." I looked at Shen Yao. He looked at me. Neither of us spoke. "Fine," I said. "Show me." Jiang Shu took my wrist. Gently. His fingers warm against my skin. Not clinical, but deliberate. His thumb pressed just below the pulse point, where the meridian ran shallow. "Stay still," he said. "Feel what I feel." I felt it. A warmth that wasn't just body heat. A pulse that wasn't my heartbeat. His qi flowed into me, controlled, precise, like water finding a channel. "There," he said. "That's normal qi. Clean. Unmarked." He shifted his grip, moved his thumb higher, pressed. "Now feel this." I felt it. A different sensation. Cold. Faintly metallic. Like touching iron that had been left in rain. "That's compound residue," he said. "It settles in the secondary meridians. Takes weeks to fade. Someone who's handled the compound recently will carry it here." His fingers were still on my wrist. His qi was still flowing into me. The courtyard was empty, except for us and Shen Yao, who stood like a statue 3 paces away. "Jiang Shu, Your hand is still on my wrist. I'm demonstrating the technique. You've been demonstrating for 30 seconds. He smiled. The real smile. The one that didn't perform for an audience. "The longer the contact, the clearer the reading," he said. "1 more second." He let go. Slowly. Like releasing something was harder than holding it. "1 second," I said. 2, he said. Behind us, Shen Yao hadn't moved. But his hand was on his sword hilt. He let go when I looked. We spent the next hour pressing our hands to door handles. Jiang Shu guided me through the technique. Qi reading, compound detection, the subtle difference between clean and marked. 3 handles glowed with the compound. Same ones from before. But now I could feel the residue too. Cold, metallic, unmistakable. "We need names," Shen Yao said. "Already have them," Jiang Shu said. He pulled a scroll from his sleeve. "Zhou Wei, Liang Feng, Chen Bao." The 3 I flagged in the financial records. Their rooms match the glowing handles. 3 names. 3 carriers. 3 people Elder Wu had recruited through debt and desperation. "Who recruits them?" I asked. "Who makes the contact? Elder Wu doesn't do it himself. He has intermediaries." Jiang Shu pointed to a name on the scroll. "This one. A outer disciple named Guo Lin. He's the handler. He makes the initial approach, delivers the first letter, explains the terms. And if they refuse, then their debts don't disappear. And Elder Wu finds someone else." Jiang Shu rolled up the scroll. "The network is self-healing. Remove one carrier, another takes their place. And..." I stood in the courtyard. The morning sun was high now. Shadows stretched across the stone. 3 names. 3 carriers. 1 handler. And, somewhere in the sect, letters were still moving. "We need to confront them," I said. "Not yet," Jiang Shu said. "First we need to understand the full network. The 3 inside Qingshan are just the local branch. There are carriers in the other sects too. Then we start with the local branch." Shen Yao looked at me. You want to turn them. I want to understand them. Then decide. He nodded. First time he'd agreed with me, without argument. We started walking towards the outer dormitories. 3 names. 3 doors. 3 people who were carrying letters for a man who'd been poisoning sects for years. And one of them, I realized as we rounded the corner, was someone I knew. Someone I'd trusted. Someone who'd been feeding me information for weeks. Mao Lin. My own informant. Carrying letters for Elder Wu. I stood outside Mao Lin's door for 30 seconds before I knocked. 3 days left. 3 carriers. One of them was the person who'd been feeding me information since the tribunal. The person who'd shown me the broken vial. The person who'd said, I thought you were different. He was different. That was the problem. I knocked. Silence. Then footsteps. Slow. Reluctant. The sound of someone who knew what was coming. The door opened. Mao Lin looked at me. His face was pale. His eyes were red. He'd been crying. You know, he said. I know. I pushed past him into the room. Small. Sparse. A bed, a desk, a window looking out onto the training courtyard. On the desk, a folded letter. Same paper. Same fold. Same symbol. I picked it up. Read it. The girl asks too many questions. Deliver this to the archive room before the 4th bell. If you fail, your brother's treatment ends. Your brother, I said. Mao Lin sat on the bed. His hands were shaking. He's sick. The sect physician won't treat outer disciples without payment. Elder Wu offered to cover the costs. All I had to do was carry letters. For how long? 6 months. His voice cracked. I didn't know what they were. I thought they were routine. Sect business. I didn't read them. You read them now. He looked at me. His eyes were wet. I read them when you showed me the first one. When you asked me to find the broken vial. When you said you were different from her. He wiped his face. I thought you were different. I am different. Then why are you here? To turn me in? To bring me to the tribunal? He stood. His voice rose. They'll kill me. You know that. Carrying letters for the man who poisoned Elder Feng, they'll call it treason. I'm not here to turn you in. He stared at me. Waiting. Elder Wu threatened your brother, I said. He's been using you for 6 months. You didn't know what the letters were. Now you do. So what? So you have a choice. I sat on the chair across from him. You can keep carrying letters and hope Elder Wu doesn't find out you've been talking to me. Or you can help me. Help you how? Keep carrying letters. But this time, you feed false information. You tell Elder Wu what I want him to think. You become a double agent. He laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. You want me to lie to the man who controls my brother's treatment? I want you to survive. Both of you. The door opened. Jiang Shu stepped in. He'd been waiting outside. Listening. She's right, he said. The network is self-healing. Remove one carrier, another takes their place. But a carrier who feeds false information, that's damage that takes months to recover from. Mao Lin looked at him. Who are you? Someone who's been tracking this network for 2 years. Jiang Shu leaned against the wall. I know the handlers. I know the dead drops. I know how Elder Wu verifies his carriers. If you feed him the right lies, he'll believe them. And we'll have time. Time for what? To build a case. To expose the network. To stop him, Jiang Shu looked at me. And to protect your brother. Mao Lin sat in silence for a long time. His hands were still shaking. His eyes were still wet. But something in his face had changed, from fear to calculation, from panic to decision. If I do this, he said, and Elder Wu finds lanterns, crowned furniture. 3 lines, and a background appearance at the tribunal. He was never supposed to be this smart. He was never supposed to be looking at me at all. But the novel was dead, and the man who killed it was now writing me letters. Zhang Shu found me in the garden. He always found me in gardens. I was starting to think he had a tracking technique I didn't know about. "You look like you haven't slept," he said. I slept. Badly. With a letter. I held it out. He read it. His expression didn't change. Not surprise, not fear. Just the calm focus of someone who'd been expecting this. "He's been watching you," Zhang Shu said. "For how long? Long enough to know your speech patterns. Your decisions. The way you carry yourself." He folded the letter. "Yan Bei was cold because she was afraid. You're not cold because you're not afraid. You're just different. Different how?" He looked at me. The real look. The one that didn't perform for an audience. "You care," he said. "She never did." I stared at him. He stared back. The bamboo rustled. A bird sang somewhere. The garden was too beautiful for this conversation. "You've been watching me too," I said. "I've been watching you since you saved Mao Lin's brother. Since you chose not to expose Su Mei. Since you walked into a tunnel with someone you didn't trust because the evidence was too important to ignore." He paused. "Yan Bei would never have done any of those things. Then maybe I'm not Yan Bei. You're not. That's the point." He stepped closer. Not touching. Just close enough that I could feel the warmth of him through fabric. Elder Wu figured it out because he was looking for it. But I figured it out because I was looking at you. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said nothing. Which was, apparently, the wrong thing. Because he kept talking. The real Yan Bei was cold because she was afraid. Afraid of losing her position. Afraid of being replaced. Afraid of what Elder Feng's decision meant for her future. He looked at me. "You're not afraid of any of that. You're afraid of something else entirely." "What?" "That you'll fail. That the people you're trying to protect will get hurt because you didn't move fast enough. That's not a villain's fear. That's a hero's fear." I was about to respond. I had words, I had arguments, I had entire monologue about why he was wrong and this was all a misunderstanding, when I heard footsteps. Not the soft brush of a disciple passing through, the measured step of someone who walked with purpose. Shen Yao. He came around the bamboo grove and stopped. Looked at me, looked at Zhang Shu, looked at the space between us, close but not touching, almost intimate but not quite. He didn't say anything. "Shen Yao," I said. He looked at me. His expression was unreadable. Not angry, not hurt, just closed, like a door that had been shut very carefully. "I was looking for you," he said. "The carrier list. Zhang Shu's scroll. I need to..." He stopped. Looked at Zhang Shu again. "Never mind. It can wait." He turned and walked away. His footsteps were measured, controlled. The kind of exit that doesn't look back. I watched him round. Zhang Shu watched me watching him. You, same garden, for different reasons, at the same time. 3 days left. 150 doses. A network spanning 3 sects. And a romantic triangle that was starting to feel like a trap. I folded the letter, put it in my pocket. Then I walked toward Shen Yao's quarters. Because Zhang Shu was right. I needed to talk to him, before the space between us became a wall. Shen Yao didn't come to the archive room. 3rd bell passed. 4th bell. The scrolls sat untouched. The 2nd chair stayed empty. He was avoiding me. Not aggressively. Not obviously. Just absent. The kind of avoidance that leaves no marks but fills the space where someone should be. According to the pages I'd memorized, this was chapter 15. The chapter where Shen Yao realized he was in love with Su Mei. But this wasn't the novel. And Shen Yao wasn't choosing Su Mei. He was choosing distance. I found Su Mei in the medicine hall, grinding herbs, the mortar rhythmic against the stone. "Have you seen Shen Yao?" I asked. "Eastern corridor." She didn't look up. "He's been different since yesterday. He saw you with Jiang Shu," she said. "He saw you standing close to someone who isn't him." She wiped her hands on a cloth. "Shen Yao doesn't share well. The novel wrote him that way, territorial, protective, single-minded. But this version of him is worse. Because this version of him is confused." She moved to the window, looked out at the training courtyard. "He looks lost," she said. "You should talk to him." "About what?" "About whatever he thinks he saw. About whatever he thinks it means." She turned back to me. "Or don't. And let him pull away until there's nothing left to pull back." I found Shen Yao at the eastern corridor, not practicing, just standing, looking at the wall like it held answers. Shen Yao, he didn't turn. "Lady Yan, don't call me that." He turned. His expression was closed. Not angry, not hurt. Just shut, like a door that had been locked from the inside. "I need to ask you something," he said. "And I need you to answer honestly, okay? Who is he to you?" The question hung in the air. Simple. Direct. The kind of question that shouldn't have been hard to answer. But it was. "He's an ally," I said. "That's not what I asked." I looked at him. He looked at me. Neither of us blinked. "What did you ask?" "I asked who he is to you. Not what he does. Not what he provides. Who he is." Silence. I could have answered. I could have said, "He's a friend. He's a partner. He's someone who figured out I wasn't Yan Bei before anyone else and chose to help instead of expose." I could have said all of that. But I didn't. Because the answer was more complicated than any of those words. Had a love triangle. It was supposed to be between Yan Bei, Shen Yao, and Su Mei. The villain, the hero, and the pure girl. Clean. Simple. Resolved by chapter 20. But the novel's triangle was dead. And this, the one between me, Shen Yao, and Jiang Shu, was alive. And it was getting worse. 3 days left. The carriers were still moving. The letters were still folding. Then I walked toward the archive room. Because the carriers weren't going to map themselves. And somewhere in the sect, Elder Wu was waiting to see what I'd do next. 3 days. I counted them the way Su Mei counted carriers, methodically, with evidence. I sat in the archive room at midnight. Jiang Shu sat across from me. Between us, Mao Lin's scroll, the carrier map, and a letter I'd written myself. "Ready?" Jiang Shu asked. "Ready." The letter was simple. False information, designed to look real. It said I'd found evidence of Elder Wu's connection to the Western sects. That I was planning to bring it to the tribunal. That I had proof. It was a lie. But it was a specific lie, the kind that would force Elder Wu to move. To send someone, to reveal a piece of his network we hadn't mapped yet. "Where do we send it?" I asked. "Mao Lin delivers it to the dead drop behind the medicine hall. The handler, Guo Lin, picks it up. Routes it to Elder Wu. Jiang Shu pulled a map from his sleeve. If Elder Wu reacts, we'll know which corridor he uses. Which door he opens, which person he contacts first, and if he doesn't react, then we know the letter wasn't specific enough. And we try again." I looked at the letter, my handwriting. My words, a lie wrapped in truth, designed to catch a man who'd been poisoning sects for years. "Let's hope he reacts," I said. We waited in the archive room. Midnight. The sect was asleep. The only sounds were the crackle of the candle and the distant drip of water somewhere in the walls. Jiang Shu moved around the table, checking the scroll, checking the map, checking the letter. His hands were steady. Edge of the table, a small thing, a nothing thing. He reached across, adjusted it. His fingers brushed my wrist, just for a second. Just long enough to feel the warmth of him through fabric. Better? He asked. Better. He didn't move his hand immediately. He held it there. 1 second. 2. Long enough to feel the warmth of him through the thin fabric. Long enough to forget the deadline entirely. Jiang Shu. Your hand is still on my sleeve. He smiled. The real smile. The one that didn't perform for an audience. Just checking the fit, he said. He let go. Slowly. Like releasing something was harder than holding it. The trap's set, I said, pulling my sleeve back into place. The candle flickered. The archive room was quiet, and somewhere in the sect, a letter was moving toward a dead drop behind the medicine hall. We waited. Hour 1. Nothing. The sect slept. The candle burned. Jiang Shu and I sat across from each other, not speaking, not touching, just existing in the same space. Hour 2. A sound. Distant. Footsteps. Not the measured pace of a guard. The quick shuffle of someone who didn't want to be heard. Someone's moving, Jiang Shu said. We moved to the window. The archive room overlooked the medicine hall courtyard. In the moonlight, a figure crossed the open space. Small. Quick. Carrying something. Guo Lin, Jiang Shu said. The handler. He's picking up the letter. The figure reached the dead drop. A shelf behind the medicine hall. He picked up the letter, opened it, read it by moonlight. Then he folded it, put it in his pocket, and walked away. He took it, I said. He took it. Jiang Shu turned from the window. Now we wait for Elder Wu's reaction. Hour 3. The sect was deep in sleep. The candle had burned down to a nub. I was starting to think nothing would happen, that Elder Wu had seen through the lie, that the trap had failed, that we'd have to try again. Then, a light. In the eastern corridor. A lantern, moving fast. That's not a guard, Jiang Shu said. We watched. The lantern stopped at a door. Third from the end. The door of one of the carriers, Zhou Wei, the one with the sick father. The door opened. The lantern entered. A minute later, it emerged. Moving faster now, toward the western corridor. He's waking the carriers, Jiang Shu said. Emergency protocol. The letter spooked him. Good. Not good. If he's waking the carriers, he's sending them to scatter. To destroy evidence. To clean house. Jiang Shu grabbed his scroll. We need to move. Now. We left the archive room. The sect was waking, not the normal morning routine, but the hurried shuffle of people who'd been pulled from sleep with urgent instructions. We followed the lantern. Through the eastern corridor. Past the training courtyard. To the outer dormitories. The lantern stopped at Mao Lin's door. That's our man, Jiang Shu said. Guo Lin. He's going to tell Mao Lin to destroy the evidence. We need to intercept. Carefully. If Elder Wu sees us, he'll know the letter was a trap. And he'll disappear. We moved. Quiet. Fast. The corridor was dark. The lantern was ahead. The figure was entering Mao Lin's door. Relentless. I circled. Found an opening. Threw a chair at the figure's legs. He stumbled. Shen Yao's blade found his shoulder. Cut deep. The figure fell. I knelt beside the figure. Pulled off the mask. A face I didn't recognize. Young. Angry. Frightened. The face of someone who'd been recruited through debt, and desperation. "Who sent you?" I asked. He didn't answer. Shen Yao pressed his sword against the man's throat. "Answer," Shen Yao said. "Elder Wu," the figure gasped. "He told me to kill you. Said you were a threat to the network. What else? He's coming. Himself. Tomorrow, he wants to see your face." I stood. The words hung in the air like smoke. Elder Wu was coming. Not through intermediaries. Not through letters. Himself. To look me in the eye. To confirm what he already knew. "Where?" I asked. "Here. The archive room. Midnight." I looked at Shen Yao. He looked at me. Neither of us spoke. Then, "Are you hurt?" he asked. Not professional. Not distant. Just concerned. "No," he nodded. The tension in his shoulders dropped. Not all the way, but enough. Jiang Shu entered. He'd heard the fight. Seen the figure. Understood. "Elder Wu is coming tomorrow," I said. I heard. He looked at the figure on the floor. "We need to prepare." "Prepare how?" "3 of us. 1 room. 1 elder, who's been poisoning sects for years." Jiang Shu pulled a scroll from his sleeve. "I have a plan. But it requires you to do something you won't like." "What?" "Let him see you. Let him confirm what he knows. And then use it. Use it how? Show him the evidence. Show him we know about the network. Show him we can expose it." Jiang Shu looked at the figure. "And show him we have a carrier who can testify." The figure on the floor looked up. His eyes were wide. Fearful. The look of someone who'd just realized he was more valuable alive than dead. I looked at the letter on the table. The real evidence. The dates. The names. The proof that could end Elder Wu's network. "1 more day," I said. "1 more day," Jiang Shu confirmed. Shen Yao cleaned his sword. The figure lay on the floor, bound and silent. The candle was relit. The archive room was quiet again. But the quiet was different now. It was the quiet before something broke. 3 days. The assassin's confession still tasted like iron. The network's reach, 3 sects, 12 carriers, 1 man at the center, was larger than anything the novel described. And tomorrow, the man who built it was coming to look me in the eye. Tomorrow, the man who built the network was coming to look me in the eye. I stood at my window and watched the sect wake. Disciples emerging from quarters. Morning practice beginning. The ordinary rhythm of a place that didn't know what was coming. 1 day left. The assassin's words still echoed. Elder Wu was coming. Not through letters. Not through carriers. Himself. And I still didn't know how to survive the conversation. In the novel, Elder Wu was background furniture. 3 lines and a background appearance at the tribunal. He was never supposed to be this dangerous. He was never supposed to be walking through the front door. But the novel was dead. And the man who killed it was coming tomorrow. Shen Yao found me in the corridor. Not by accident. I could tell by the way he stood. Not hesitant, not uncertain. Just present. "About the archive room last night," he said. "When the assassin came, you didn't flinch. I'm good at not flinching. No. You're good at pretending you don't need anyone." He paused. I walked away because I was afraid. Afraid of what I was feeling. Afraid that if I stayed, I'd have to choose. Choose what? Between the sect and you. He looked at me. Direct. Steady. "I don't care who he is. I care who you are." The words hung in the air. Simple. Direct. The kind of words that shouldn't have meant everything but did. "I don't know who I am," I said. "Then I'll wait until you do." He smiled. Small. Uncertain. The smile of someone who was learning how to be honest. "But I'm not walking away again." Su Mei found me at noon, in the medicine hall, grinding herbs, the mortar rhythmic against the stone. I heard about Elder Wu, she said. News travels fast. I have my sources. She set down the mortar, looked at me. I have something for you. Something I've been holding. What? Elder Wu has a nephew. In the outer sect. His name is Wu Cheng. She pulled a scroll from her sleeve. I've been protecting him. I stared at her. Protecting him? His uncle is a poisoner. A network builder. A man who's been poisoning sects for years. But Wu Cheng doesn't know. He's 16. He thinks his uncle is a pillar of the sect. She looked at the scroll. If the tribunal finds out about the nephew, they'll arrest him. Execute him. The blood of the poisoner runs in his veins. End quote. He's innocent. He's 16. She paused. I've been hiding him. Keeping him out of the investigation. Making sure no one connects him to his uncle. I looked at the scroll. Names. Dates. A 16-year-old boy who didn't know his uncle was a poisoner. And Su Mei, who the novel called Pure, had been protecting him for months. Why? I asked. Why protect the nephew of the man you've been building a case against? Because the nephew is the one piece of evidence that doesn't fit. She took the scroll back, folded it. If I expose Elder Wu through his nephew, the tribunal will execute the boy. Cleanse the bloodline. That's what they do. She looked at me. But if I protect the boy and expose Elder Wu through the network, through the carriers, through the compound, through the evidence in that tunnel, the nephew lives. You want me to choose. I want you to understand what choosing costs. She set the scroll on the work table. I'll give you everything. The evidence. The names. The timeline. But you protect Wu Cheng. Get him out of the sect. Send him somewhere the tribunal can't reach. I'm not pure, but I'm not evil either. I'm just choosing. I stood in the medicine hall. Su Mei's words hung in the air like smoke. 3 people now knew I wasn't Yan Bei. Jiang Shu, Elder Wu, and Su Mei. How long have you known? I asked. Since the tribunal. When you didn't attack me, she smiled. It wasn't warm. The original Yan Bei would have attacked. You didn't. That told me everything. Why didn't you say anything? Because you're more useful than she was. She picked up the mortar, resumed grinding. The novel called Me Pure. Kind. Never wrong. She set down the mortar. Looked at me. I'm not the person they described. I'm the person who survived them. She turned back to her herbs. How long before the whole sect knows? I asked. As long as you keep being different. She didn't look up. The novel's pages are dead, but the people who read them are still watching. I left the medicine hall, walked through the corridors. The sect was settling into evening routine, disciples returning to quarters, lanterns being lit, the quiet murmur of voices behind closed doors. Tomorrow, midnight, the archive room, Elder Wu. 3 people knew my secret. Jiang Shu, Elder Wu, Su Mei. 3 people who could expose me. 3 people who chose not to. For different reasons. With different motives. Jiang Shu because he saw something in me worth protecting. Elder Wu because he wanted to understand what I was. Su Mei because I was useful. I stood at my window, watched the sun set over the mountains. The sky turned gold, then orange, then purple. The sect glowed in the fading light, beautiful, peaceful, unaware. Somewhere in the sect, Elder Wu was preparing. Tomorrow at midnight, he would walk through the front door and look me in the eye. The sect didn't know. Not yet. But the novel's pages were dead. And the people who read them were still watching. He arrived at midnight. Not with an army. Not with threats. not with the dramatic entrance the novel would have written. He arrived like a man visiting an old friend, calm, measured, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. I stood in the archive room. The door was open. The candle was lit. The evidence was on the table. Dates, names, the carrier network mapped in Su Mei's precise handwriting. Jiang Shu was outside. Shen Yao was at the window. The assassin was bound in the corner, still silent. And Elder Wu walked in. He was older than I expected. Not frail, controlled. The kind of control that comes from decades of practice. His robes were clean. His hands were steady. His eyes were calm. He looked at me. Long silence. Then, "You're not her." "No," I said. "Good." He sat in the chair across from me, like he belonged there. Like this was his room, his table, his evidence. She was useless. I stared at him. You knew Yan Bei. Everyone knew Yan Bei. Cold. Arrogant. Predictable. He looked at the evidence on the table. "You're different. You're careful. You're strategic. You don't waste words. You've been watching me. For months." He leaned forward. "Since you saved the servant's brother. Since you chose not to expose Su Mei. Since you walked into a tunnel with someone you didn't trust because the evidence was too important to ignore." He paused. "Yan Bei would never have done any of those things. You keep saying that, because it's true." He looked at me. Direct. Steady. "Who are you?" I could have lied. I could have said, "I'm Yan Bei. I'm the same person I've always been." But he'd already figured it out. And lying to a man who'd built a network spanning 3 sects felt pointless. "I'm someone who woke up in this body," I said. "Someone who knows the novel's plot. Someone who's been trying to survive it." "The novel," he smiled. It wasn't warm. That explains the foreknowledge, the deviations, the things you do that she never would have. It explains everything. "Then let me explain something to you." He leaned back. The network. The carriers. The compound. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't power. It was policy. "Policy," I said. "The sects were dying." He looked at the evidence on the table. Grand elders hoarding knowledge. Disciples starving. The system rotting from within. I poisoned Qingfeng to force succession reform. To make the sects look at what they'd become. You poisoned him to change the system. I poisoned him to save it. He leaned forward. The network exists because the sects were killing themselves. Slowly. Quietly. Without anyone noticing. I just accelerated the process. I looked at the evidence. The dates. The names. The carrier network mapped in Su Mei's handwriting. All of it, the letters, the threats, the assassins, was supposed to be a wake-up call. "The novel never mentioned this," I said. "The novel didn't care about policy. It cared about heroes and villains." He stood. "I'm neither. I'm a man who saw a problem and tried to fix it. And the compound. A tool. Nothing more." He moved toward the door. "But there's something else you should know." He paused at the door. Turned. Looked at me. The compound I used on Qingfeng. It wasn't meant to kill him. It was meant to activate something. Activate what? Something buried in his meridians. Something that's been sleeping for 30 years. He looked at me. "You should ask him what happened 30 years ago." I stared at him. What happened 30 years ago? That's not my story to tell. He turned back to the door. But I'll tell you this, the poison wasn't revenge. It was a key. And the door it opens is older than any of us. He walked out. His footsteps echoed in the corridor. Calm. Measured. The footsteps of a man who'd said what he came to say. I stood in the archive room. The candle flickered. The evidence lay on the table. The assassin was still bound in the corner, and somewhere in the sect, Elder Feng was sleeping, unaware that something in his meridians had been sleeping for 30 years. I walked to Elder Feng's chamber. He was awake, rare, unsteady, propped against pillows. His eyes were open, clear, focused, the eyes of a man who'd just remembered something he'd chosen to forget. I sat beside him, didn't ask about 30 years. Started small. Elder Feng, the night you collapsed. What did you feel? He was quiet for a long time. Then, heat. Not pain. Heat. Like something moving inside me that had been still for a very long time. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what Elder Wu did, or why. He just knows something shifted. I asked, 30 years ago. What happened? His face changed. Not fear. Recognition. The look of a man remembering something he chose to forget. 30 years ago, he said, I did something I never told anyone. Something I sealed away. Something I thought would stay buried. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were different. Focused. Clear. The eyes of a man who just remembered what he was before he became Grand Elder. I made a promise, he said, to someone who is dead now. And I broke it. According to the pages I'd memorized, Elder Feng was a saint. According to the pages I'd memorized, he chose Su Mei because she was pure. According to the pages I'd memorized, he was dying from poison. Every page was wrong. And now I'm sitting next to a man who just remembered a 30-year secret. And the man who poisoned him knew it was there all along. Elder Feng looked at me. Direct. Steady. The frailty gone from his eyes. There's something I need to tell you, he said. Before it's too late, I came into this story knowing how it ended. I changed the ending. But I didn't know the story had a beginning I never read. Elder Feng is awake. And he just remembered something that's been sleeping for 30 years. I don't know what it is, but I know it changes everything.